Welcome everybody and welcome to today's Wednesday's webinar. I'm Martin from Support and I'll be joined today by...
Hi there, I'm Karen and I'm working in the background helping out with the Q&A sessions, which we will have throughout the hour today. So if you have a question, please add it to the Q&A tab at the bottom of the window there or wherever you find it. Yep. And we have just one ask, and that is to keep your questions on topic. That helps us have a much more fluid webinar. Okay, I'll see you later and have fun.
Thank you, Karen. Right, today's webinar then, practical features. So basically what we're looking at is all the little features that will help you in your workflows, and some are like shortcuts and help, and and others are for I don't know, aligning and doing whatever. Anyway, so let's crack on then. I've got this project. This was one of the projects over from last week for the debugging. So we open up the skin and it's a blank skin. Okay, so what I want to do is just show you, I'm going to add some buttons, he says. So let's go to buttons and I'm going to add, I don't know, a left, a right. Let's do the filtering, so let's do zoom, because I want to add some zoom buttons, he says. And let's add a couple of zoom buttons. Here we go. All right. So that's me adding some buttons. So I'm going to drag, like if you can see in the skins tree, the tree always starts from top to bottom. So the most furthermost, or the most forward item is going to be SVG4. So I'm going to click and drag that to one side. Here we go. And the task I want to do is just tidy these up. I want to align them, and I want to distribute them. So what we do is we're going to select the top button, and I'm going to hold down the shift key and click SVG1, which will then select them all. Now the trick here is, if you'll notice that the one I originally selected, which is going to be the master, is a darker blue than the others. So anything I do with this, it will be taking reference from this particular SVG button or graphic. This also is the same for text boxes, rectangles, or anything else in the skin. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is dive into the edit menu. Now last week we were using debugging, so the find, but this week we're going to concentrate on some other little things. So we're going to be aligning elements. Now I can do left edges, top edges. So I'm going to align, or rather not align, sorry, distribute, and I'm going to distribute to the left edges. Here we go, because that's what we want to do, is separate them out. And as soon as I click that, you'll see we've distributed them, and it basically distributes from the two outer, so from SVG1 to SVG4. Okay, so that's basically the distribution. If I was to move that and do it again, it's just basically evenly distributing between these 2 points. Okay, so as they're all still selected, I can go back to the edit menu and we can align, and now top edges. And when I click that, you'll see that they'll all the other buttons will come down to line up with the zoom out button. Okay, another little quick tip that we're going to include here is, basically, if I select an image or I select a graphic, you would rename it over here. I covered this, and we've said this many times, you can just double click in the tree and just add text there. So let me just quickly add some text here just to tidy this up. Okay, so that's that. And if I select them all, so click in the top one, holding down the shift, I can move them all in one go. Cool. Right. The next task I want to, or the next quick tip is the match size. Now, with some of the stuff we've already covered, if you right button click in the skins tree, you can, not so much this one, that has got some context menus. Now, if we go into the edit menu, you'll see that we've got far more. So we're obviously doing this align, distribute, center elements in canvas. I will come back to this, but what I want to do is look at this match size. Now, this is quite good. if I grab this button, open it up, what I can do is select the left button and then use the shift key again and select them all. I'm now got the left button as my reference. So now if I go into edit, match size, I can either do width, height for both. So let's do both. Boom. And it brings it back. It's matching the size of the other elements. Now the thing to do is the thing to note here is that I dragged it downwards. If I'd have dragged it upwards and done the same thing, I mean, don't even have to select them all. I just need to select one next to it. If I was to do the same thing, both, you'll see that it's snapping, or say snapping, it's resizing, but it's resizing obeying the anchoring. So if I come back, so I'm just going to step back one click, so the undo button. This is another one really. If you see any buttons with a little down arrow, if you click and hold, it gives you a history and you can go back to any point. If you don't and just click it, you just go back to one point. All right, so let's go back to where it was there. Right, so what I want to do with this one then is put it back to where it was. There it is. So that's where the history comes in really handy. And if I do the same thing again, so let's just expand that up, but this time use the anchor the bottom left instead of the top left and do the same thing. So let's have my reference. I'm holding down the shift and edit, match size, both. Boom, it's bringing it down. So it's actually obeying the anchor points, which is something worth noting. Okay, so that's distributing and aligning, matching size. Oh, sorry. What I want to do now is I want to wrap a container around it. I've added all my buttons, but now I want to wrap a container around it. Okay, there's several ways of doing this. I can select container, click, and then drag everything into it and align it manually. Boring, don't want to do that. That's not very time saving at all. So let's just click back. Or I can click the container, click and drag around those elements, and it adds the container around them for you. So very, very quick to do. Okay, but what happens is if there's things in the way. So if I've got this rectangle and I'm going to stick it behind the buttons, if I was to try and do that again, it would include that rectangle, right? There's no way around it other than move the rectangle out of the way or whatever. But there's a handy little feature that we can do, and that is, again, if we select all of just the buttons, and if I hold down the command key on the keyboard, which is going to be control for PC, I'm on the Mac, so it's command key. If I select the container and click anywhere in the skin, it adds it around only the elements I've selected. So bypassing and not including elements that could be close by, which is, if you've got a really busy skin, this is worth doing. Okay, right, so that's worth doing. Now that I've got my container wrapped around it, let's just rename that. Again, I could have done it in the tree, but I've chose to do it in the properties. Let's just controller, right? Okay. What I want to do with this is position it. Now this brings me on nicely to another little feature that we've added in version 7, which I don't know if you guys have found yet. I think it's definitely in the documentation, but if you hover over something like the logic block, you'll see that the mouse turns, or the mouse pointer turns into a hand. But if you'd notice, so does the position, and so does these icons. What's going on there then? Well, basically it's resetting the element's position. So if I double click position, it sets it to 0, 0. All right. If I just click one of the icons, so the x-axis icon, it sets that, and of course vice versa, the y-axis as well. Okay, but it's doing it obeying the anchoring. So if I was to say bottom right and do it, double click, it sends it to bottom right. So because I want my controller at the bottom in the middle, set the anchor point of the container, double click, job done. I might want to bring it up a little bit, so I can just add 23 pixels to that. And that is my container and controller anchored in the skin where I want it. Right, for a carry on, we've been sort of 10 minutes into it or just over. Karen, do we have any questions?
Hi, no questions yet, but there's one thing I wanted to point out that I think is new in version 7 is if you use Command or Control A in the tree, you can select everything. So you don't have to do a shift and click at the bottom of the list. You can do Command A, which is super useful.
Excellent. Right. No, that's really good because Command A, I mean, that takes me on to something later, but yeah, Command A.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were
yeah, no, it's
throw that or not, but that's
because I'm selecting. As
someone who doesn't click so much, I'm a keyboard
junkie
on these. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very much the reverse. So between the pair of us, we sort of meet in the middle. So that's exactly. Really cool. Yeah. No. Okay. Cool. So, well, if no one's got any questions, I take it we have people here. Does anyone want to say hi and say hello and say that we're actually here? Because I don't know. I'm sitting on this side of the screen. Right. Okay.
There are people here. They're raising their hands, saying hi.
All right. Good. I don't see that, unfortunately, but good.
Oh,
cool.
Wait. There's a yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
I've got
Martin.
2. I've got 2. I've got 3. Oh, that's it. Well,
yeah. See, everyone's
awesome.
Everyone's rolling in.
Everyone's rolling in. Right. Okay.
Cool. Okay.
All right. So let's get back then. So we've reset the element's position and whatnot. And what I was doing very much, just going down the list. So under the edit menu then, what we've also got is hide and lock in canvas. This is good if you've got a really busy skin. You click this and you can hide the element. It's also under the right button click context menu for the element as well. And you've also got the lock in canvas, and you've also got, so if I click that, you see it locks it in canvas, so there's nothing I can do now. I can't shift it, move it, delete it, or anything else. I can if I select it in the tree. It's not impervious, but when you're working in the canvas, you can't. Okay. Now you can unlock using the context menu, or you can just click the eyeball to hide and show, and if you Alt click the eyeball, you can lock it. All right, so there's another little trick there with the Alt click. All right, so that's hide and show. You can even hide it and lock it hidden if you wish. Don't know what, but you can. All right, so that's the hide in the canvas and lock in the canvas. The lock in the canvas is really useful. Again, if you're building a busy skin and you're clicking and dragging away, you can move something. You can just lock it and then even hide it and just get it out of the way. All right, okay. Another one in the menu that could be a little bit confusing is that you have reveal in canvas. Okay, this one here, reveal in canvas. Now, what this is all about is if I was to add an element in the corner up here, you'd think to yourself, well, okay, reveal in canvas. Yeah, context menu. Well, obviously, it's the one I've clicked on. You can see it's bright red. Why do I need to worry about it? Well, if you've got a massive skin or you've got zoom selected, all right, I've lost sight now of the controller, so I can right button click, reviewing canvas, takes me to the controller. Right button click, reviewing canvas, takes me back to here. Also, is if you hold down the space bar, look at my mouse pointer. He says, here we go. It turns into a drag handle, so we can drag the zoomed in skin, or if it's not zoomed in, a big skin. If it's let's just do that. If I was to reduce the size, and we got this, I can. He says, no, actually, that doesn't. So it's zoomed in, right? Okay, so we can use that then spacebar to drag it around on a zoomed in skin. So there we go. So hand cursor, drag it around. Right. Okay. So as I say, that one was. I mean, when I first saw that after the team have added it, I was like, okay, what's the point? I can right button click and see it in there. But obviously, if it's a bit large skin or you've zoomed in, it's useful. Right. So that's just another little one. Revealing tree. Okay. Right, this is actually quite cool, what I'm just about to show you. And that's, I've got a rectangle added, okay. And what I want to do is add another rectangle, but I want it to be a child of it, so I would do that, right? So I've now got two rectangles. Okay, but what you can also do is with that rectangle selected and pressing down Alt, he says, and just draw the rectangle, it automatically adds it as a child of the selected rectangle. And as soon as I do that, I get another selected rectangle. So I can press Alt and add another rectangle. And we can carry on. Now that brings us nicely to this other, if I click this revealing tree, it automatically expands all the elements to show that element I'm looking at. Okay, and again that would also work with the controller. If I select the button, revealing tree, you'll see that the controller unravels, as it were, expands, and you see that, or the element in the tree. Okay. Right, where am I? Let's have a look. Right, so that's all of those. I'm reading from a list because there's quite a lot here, and if I'm not careful I want to miss something, and I certainly don't want to miss anything because there's actually some quite good stuff in here. So expand element. Now this isn't probably what you think it is. It works with cloners and scroll areas. So as an example, if I had a cloner, right, and I want to add a text box as a child to it, so I can hold down the Alt key, click and add a text box. You'll see the text box is now a child of the cloner because of the Alt key, and I can double click position and bingo, we've now lined it all up. So those little shortcuts, boom, this is where and how you would use them in practical terms. So I've got this. Now if we look, or expand it or not, doesn't matter, but if we right button click and we've got this expand element, what it does is we're now looking inside the cloner. So this is the cloned area, and you can see here we've got this breadcrumb, so we're actually sitting inside the cloner, and I can jump back. If I click here, we can jump back to the skin. So if I was to make the clone area a little bit larger, say 100 by 100, and do the same thing, you'll see that we've got the 100 by 100 canvas, which is the internal of the cloner. It's the same thing for the scroller, as I said, so that works. So if I wanted to add another element in there, I could, you know, and when I come back out, you'll see we can do that. But it just allows me to work expand element with inside the element's own little canvas, as it were. Right, okay. I've got one of the team typing, so perhaps I've not mentioned something I should have done. I don't know. If he hurry ups and types, I will say it, but if you don't, you can just double click the element in the tree to get into the expanded view. Right, okay. He says you can double click. Ah, I've got you. Right, so if you click on the icon itself, you can get straight in. Okay, that's even shorter way of doing it. Right, fair enough. Well done. Thank you very much. So yeah, that's the expand element. Okay, let's have a little look. What else can we play with? Right, what I want to look at now is the preview. Now you can see the preview. We've got these buttons here. Now, as Karen was mentioning, you can Alt A or Command A and select everything in the skins tree. But what I want to do again is just select just the buttons. So I'd select the top one, Shift, and select those. Whilst I'm here, what I can do is I want to play with the scaling. I want to set that on mouse over when it's true. Set the scaling to 110. Now what's quick about that is that, you know, it's the shift click, it's to select everything. Once you've done it all, you know, now all the buttons we'll do that. If I wanted to change, say if I wanted to add the hand cursor to all of those, you select them all. Once they're all selected, you add the hand cursor. All of those elements now will have the hand cursor. So again, selecting the elements is actually quite good. Now, what Karen was mentioning earlier, which is also very good, is if you use the Command A, you select everything, you can hide and show certain elements in the tree or in the canvas, or once you've built your skin, you can right button click and can you lock all of them? He says, edit. Locking canvas. Oh, sorry, locking canvas. Edit locking canvas. So that's everything locked in the canvas, and then your canvas is safe for, I don't know, giving to somebody else, and they're not going to destroy it unless they know what they're doing. Okay, so that's all of those. Everything I wanted to say there. So right, so back to the preview window. What have we got in here? Well, before I go on, we got any questions, Karen?
Hi. No, not really. Jim was just asking what the cloner is used for, and it's not really on topic with this with our webinar, but do know, take a look at our previous webinars and our documentation. But in short, cloners, they replicate whatever you put inside of them. So it's a way to basically make menus and whatnot. But that's a whole other webinar, which I think we've covered a few times, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Or if you just go into the skin and just open up one of the preview the package skins, you'll see the cloners being used there as well. So yeah, all good. Right.
Okay. I think that's it. Yep.
Awesome. Right. Thank you very much, Karen. I'll plod on. He says, right, so we're at the preview. Okay, we're at the live preview. And what you can see here in the header is its size, and it says desktop. So why is this relevant? Well, what this is good for is if you drag it, you're actually seeing live view of the window size. So this is excellent if you're doing, you're building skins for mobiles, as an example, because you might say, if I'm on a narrow device, I want to change the shape of something. All right, so you could, for argument's sake, let's just bring everything back into play. He says, here we go. Right. So if I add a container, here we go. And I'm going to say this container is, I'm going to add a logic block to it. And I'm going to say that when the player width is less than 640. Okay. Not 6,000. Right. Okay. 640. We're going to change that to color red. Alrighty then. So if I click OK and we open the preview starts off at 640 by 480, which is the default size of the canvas. If I now change its size upwards, nothing happens, but when I dip below that, you'll see that we can trigger the logic block. So if you want to test your size logic blocks, the preview window is the place to do it before you obviously export out. And you can actually see exactly at what points you're triggering. So this was at 640. So if I go 640 and then 639, you can see it triggering there. The logic block, by the way, was if it's less than 640. If I'd have put equal to and less than, then it would have been red. If I'd have gone to 641, then it wouldn't have been. Let's do it. So it's red. If I go to 641, well, if I can get to 1, there we go. So it's still white, and at 640, it's there. But anyway, that's another webinar as well, really. Anyway, so that was the preview window size. You see it's got desktop there. If you see any of the buttons and they've got a down arrow, as I said, if you press and hold, you'll see that you get extra options. So here what we can do is preview as mobile. So what this does now is it sets the window to be to report back to say it's on a mobile phone. So we could, as an example, deselect visible. You see it's gone. And what I could do is say player is mobile is true, show it. Okay, click OK, you'll see it's back again. All right, so that's the is mobile. If I set this back to not being a mobile, it's hidden. So again, you can test the is mobile and the sizes and all of that sort of thing as well. Right, so that's the preview window. Other little things within the skin. I know I'm jumping around a bit. I feel like I'm jumping around a lot, and I do apologise for that. I'm just I'm looking down my list and trying to keep everything fluent. But as I say, there's a lot of things going on that are really, really helpful. So I'm trying to do it in a fluid way. But what I want to show is also under the view menu for the skin. Tools view menu, we have snap to grid and snap to guides. Snap to grid I think is default is off. I was playing with this earlier, so it's probably on. Snap to grid works if I click in the skins preview window, if you've got a grid, so if we set that to 5, if I put view snap to grid, we can now see that the elements are snapping to a 5 pixel grid. All right. If I put on view snap to guidelines, when we click on it, you'll see that we've got some useful visible guides for when we're moving it around. So let's just go back to 1. I tend to do that if there's a lot going on, but what I want to do is if we turn these both off, I want to show you quite a cool trick, and that is if you select the element first, then hold down the command, again it'll be control for the PC, you automatically ad hoc, let's say automatically, you can activate the ad hoc snap to grid and, not grid, it snaps to the elements. So it's snapping to the other skin elements, and you're also seeing the guidelines. So that's actually quite good if you I know distributing buttons, obviously you can select them all and use a line, but you can also use this ad hoc feature as well. Okay, let's have a look. Right, I think that's all I want to do in this particular project. We've actually covered quite a lot here, and I'm sure a rewind and play is going to be needed for this because there was a lot going on. But what I want to do is just save that skin, come out, and I want to go to a different project. Now this is something that I almost covered last week with the debugging, but I felt it was probably useful for this webinar because it's another useful time saver. Okay, now this is a made up sort of scenario, but I'm sure you'll bump into it yourselves and probably have already done in the past. Now what we've done here is I've got this particular skin and I've got 2 info boxes. So I decided to copy it because I wanted a green one and a red one. All right, and as you know, if you duplicate anything, it complains. So what I can do is just double click here and we're going to add _red. All right, okay. Now, what also is going to go wrong here is that when we click the button, all right, you'll see that we've got loads of actions here, and it's going to adjust the alpha of this container called HT info text, which is this one. But of course, I've got an exact duplicate here, so I need to rename one. Now, of course, I can just double click and underscore and rename that red. But if we have a look at the actions in this one, it's still targeting that same ID. So it wouldn't actually affect this one. It would try and do something with this one. Okay, so let's not do that. What we're going to do is the right button click and we have a rename element. Okay, so let's click that. Now, this is why I made this a separate project. This is really useful if you're doing this sort of thing, but I just wanted to visually make it clear. Now, what you've got, this is doing, is it's finding the element, HT, and exact matching and where it occurs. So if we look down, we've got the the SVG graphic, if I click this, you'll see this is the close button, but not the one I want to affect. If I click this SVG graphic, this is the close button to the one I do want to affect. If you look in the list, you can see that we can actually deselect elements. So I can deselect this one. I don't want to affect it. I can go to this container. I don't want to affect that. It's in the wrong point hotspot. That one I do want to affect. That one I want to affect. If I click this, it jumps back up. I don't want to change or affect or change anything in that particular container. If I select this one, I do. Right, so now that I've got only the elements I want to target, I can now, oh, that was not what I wanted to do. I can copy and paste and then underscore red, click replace. Hang on, I've reselected them all again, haven't I? Right, okay, let's quickly do that again. So, don't want to do that one. Don't want to do that one. I want to add that. Want to add that. Don't want to add that. Want to add that. Underscore red, replace. Boom. I've now replaced all of that, the IDs. Now, not only has it replaced the ID, is if we have a look at the action, it's also replaced the target action as well. So if you just rename something in the skins tree, yes, you can do it. Yes, you can do it easily, but be mindful, it can be dangerous, because if those elements are being targeted by actions or even variables, this also works with variables, by the by. So if you had a variable with that name, you could have included that into the renaming, and you could have renamed the variable. But more so with actions, like with buttons with actions, because obviously if you change if you've got a variable, variables tend to be global and they tend to be using with logic blocks. But with actions, they're a little bit more sensitive to the target. So like with a button, you would say hide and show, I don't know, the info text on a button. So therefore, if you change the ID of the info text box, then that button no longer works. So this is where this reveal, or rather rename, in the skins tree comes in really, really handy. All right, now this basically wraps up the webinar, really. I think I've covered everything I want to cover. I'm just going to throw it open to Karen one more time to ask if there's any questions, but also if any of the team are listening and feel that I should include something. I feel like I've got everything I wanted to, like all the shortcuts and all the little helpers that can help you, but I just want to make sure that I haven't missed anything. So I'm going to throw it open then. Karen, any questions or anything you want to input on this one?
On my side, I think you've got all of the cool things. I think, yeah. But we have some good questions.
Right. Okay. Cool.
And I'm sorry, you're being, on our end, you're called anonymous attendee, so maybe that's what you want. But anonymous, is it possible to replace parts of the element's name? So, like, can you do under HT underscore info underscore to adding a 2 there or something? Can you add on to it?
Yeah, I mean, here we added the word red to it, and when we renamed it, it also changed it in the action as well.
Oh yeah, so you did. Maybe, yeah, and I watched you do that, so for the same thing. And let's see, the next question would be, and can the find and replace function be restricted to an element including all its children?
Hang on, say that again. Sorry, what's that saying?
So can you restrict the find and replace to just an element just one element, including its children? So can you, I assume, select, let's say your HT info red point hotspot template, and do a find and replace specific to only those elements?
Yeah, if we go to rename, they're here, so I can just copy and paste that into the replace and select blue. Yeah, so if I was to do that, copy, paste, change that to, and hit replace. Boom, it's all done. That's blue, and the actions are now blue as well. So
Can you open the container and see if the stuff inside changed?
the container, sorry.
There we go. Yeah.
Oh no.
I think that's what
No, because we're only renaming HT underscore text red. So we were being very specific. We were targeting that.
Okay.
I think what we do is if I right button click and hit rename and not exact match, HT info, and select everywhere, we then have a list of everything that's including that, and then again you can deselect from there. But that's going a little bit extreme. I'm going a little bit too mad there. But yeah, if we just did underscore text, that shortens the list a little bit. So then you could turn off others and just target these boxes on their own.
I think that's fine.
All right, but you've got this. This was covered in last week's, obviously for debugging. But again, if you're renaming, it's where are you renaming? I mean, obviously we were renaming elements, so it was targeting elements and exact matches. So it's nailing it down. I mean, if you have the search too wide and too open, then you're just going to include so many elements. If anything starts with HTN underscore info, be it an ID or a variable or an action or a target, then it's going to include it there. But you do have the ability to deselect, so when you do something, it doesn't affect those in the list.
Yeah, so I think the short answer is no. You can't just select as a parent and its children and just change those things. So I think that's the short answer in that case. But Jim was asking if there's a cheat sheet with all of these shortcuts, and yes, that's in the documentation. We have keyboard shortcuts page. I can maybe post that a little bit later. But all of these other little things are kind of sprinkled throughout the documentation. But most of them are already listed in the keyboard shortcut list.
Right. Well, the team has actually come back with something which is maybe I can open up the first project and have a look at it. And it was to do with a time saver for your images. If you've dragged in images to the skin, sorry, Karen, I'm just doing this whilst I'm thinking about it. I'm not. Whilst I'm just thinking about this, I've just seen it. I just want to cover this, and I'll come back to you after. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead. I was done.
Right. Okay. Cool. So if you basically, if you're building skins and you've got a folder full of graphics and you drag in the graphics into the project, basically what you've got here is you can see where the graphic is coming from, or you can grab a graphic from the components toolbox to replace it, which is again a time saver if there's graphics there. And the other thing is as well with that is that if there are graphics and that are not here, you can add more. You've got a little button there and you can create your own categories. But again, that's a different webinar. But what is useful is if you've got your own folder full of your own graphics that you've used and you've decided that you want to modernize it and update that graphic, or you update a set of graphics, what you can see here is we've got this button here, and what this will do is you can see it's going to refresh the graphic from its location. So if you've modernized it or adjusted it or edited it, rather than having to delete this and put the new button in and blah 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 and add all the actions, you can just hit refresh and it will then grab that button from its location and update. And you have, I believe, there we go. So under tools, you have reload linked images. So you can do this with all the buttons in the skin. or all linked images. So, if you've gone in and decided that, I want to update the buttons, as long as the buttons are the same file names, you can go in and edit them and do whatever you want. And then you can go in, click reload, and it will change all of your buttons in one click to the new ones that you've edited. Which, yeah, if you've got a lot of buttons and icons and everything else in the skin, that again can be a real time saver. Okay, but yeah, that was a good one. That was left off my list. So yeah, good call.
That reminds me of another that just remind me of a few other shortcuts that are maybe hidden. And one would be, I think that we sometimes get questions for in the color tool. If you right click within the bar, that's how you can expose a color. And then another thing in the components toolbox, you can add a component as a child of the selected parent, which is also a quick time saver.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I select that, I want to do this now. I've not done. I know it's there, but I've not done. But we right button click, and we can insert the icon as a child of the active element. So I've selected the controller. If I click that, it adds it as a child. Magic. So all I've got to do now is obviously arrange it. But yeah, you get the idea. All right. Okay. Cool. Anything else, Karen?
There's more questions, of course.
Oh.
Yeah. But even the okay. Yeah, go on. So, what do we got here? I've lost my mouse on my computer. Luca was asking about how to do the exact sizing of the skin for mobile, and where can you find the various sizes of a mobile device, right? So when we're talking about mobile, we're talking about iPads and phones and these things. And Ink had already suggested that you can get them from your dev tools, your web dev tools in the browsers. But another thing you can do in the live preview is you can change those sizes, and you can add your own sizes as well.
You can indeed. Here are the iPhone and iPhone landscape and all of the others there. But of course, as new devices come in, what you can do is add them or edit this. So, I mean, these were sizes that we added. But of course, if the next iPhone comes out with a much bigger screen, I mean, obviously this is the size minus its taskbar or toolbar at the bottom. But if a different device comes in with a different screen size, if you select preferences on the Mac and file settings on the PC, you can bring up the properties panel, and under skin editor you'll see that we've got these predefined sizes. Now you can double click and edit any of these, or you can add your own sizes. You can add as many as you want, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a mobile device. I mean, it could be that you work with a certain size of display, and it's going to be going onto a kiosk with a certain size display. I don't know, probably why you would want to do that, but you can add your own sizes there as well. So yeah, that's quite good. So again, it brings us back to that point of if a button's got a little grey down arrow, click and hold, and you get more options. All right, so there you go. Right, over to you, Karen.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for questions, and I think that's all. Can you just do me one favor, just to finalize? Can you open up the color tool and just right click on a color bar, just to show, since we've already shown the components toolbox.
Right. So if I go on there, right button click.
Yeah.
Expose color.
And if you're wondering what exposed color is that it's again.
What we're going to do is I'm going to give it a title. So let's just call it. Rectangle. You can do it with or without alpha, so you can expose the color and change the color so as a solid, or if you want to use the alpha, so click on that and click apply. If I save and close the skin, you'll see now that the skin configuration button is now active, and when I select that, because we've exposed the colour, it's here. So this is the default, and when I click this, it will open up your colour picker. Because I selected alpha, we've got the alpha channel there as well. If I hadn't, that wouldn't be there. And then we can change the colour. Click OK. I obviously changed it to orange, so there it is on the output. But if we go back in the skin, it will still be its original colour because we're changing it in the skin configuration. There we go. So that is what that is doing. And if you right button click, you can do not expose or rename it or whatever. So I can select do not expose. There we go.
Yeah, the idea is just to know that there's a menu there. And I think you'll find that a lot, not just in the skin editor, but in Pano2VR, that there are context menus, yeah, all over the place. And we try to give you hints for that, but yeah. So I have to relay to you, Martin. Jim is saying that he's enjoyed hearing you trying to remember in real time, what your notes are and trying to refer to them. So yeah.
Yeah, no, the thing is I don't know if everybody's aware of it, but I'm obviously dyslexic stroke word blind, and when I write a list, I try and make it as big as possible on a separate monitor, and I tend to check things off, but I jump every now and then. I jump, so most of this is practice a couple of times and try and do it from memory and just use the text as jolts, as little reminders. But generally speaking, I try and do follow a set path and try and make it as professionally as possible. He says tongue in cheek. But yeah, all good. But thank you very much, Jim, for that comment. Most appreciated.
Yeah, and he also said the tips are they're these little tips, but when you put them all together and you do it, all of them a lot over time, it really does
Oh, absolutely.
make a difference, and for sure. Yeah. And I think all of these things have mostly been added from us using the skin editor and trying to make it much more quicker to use and more easy for us to use.
I've got another one. I completely forgot. Sorry. It's to do with this. It's to do with the aligning of elements. As an example, I'm just going to add a hotspot. I completely forgot about this. Good job you mentioned that. If I go to icons and let's grab an icon for a hotspot. There we go. There it is. There's the icon, and let's make it 32 by 32 pixels. What I want to do is obviously put that over the top. Now, what we said about was, if I was to make this a child of it, I can just set the anchor point to center and position it. But what I didn't say, or I might have done, but I can't remember if I did, is if you set your anchor point to the middle, if you hold down the Alt key or Option on the Mac, so it's Option on the Mac is the Alt on the PC, is if you click and drag that and make it a child of it, it will automatically snap to that position. So if I undo that and we'll anchor it, top left and do it again, you'll see that it's anchored to the center of its parent element using the top left. And this, because I use it so often, it's almost muscle memory. I forget to say it. I just well, everyone should know this. Why don't you know this? But obviously, why would you know this? But yeah, this is quite a good one. So yeah, if you set your anchor point, Alt, drag and drop, bam, you've done your hotspot and you've got it centered and it's good to go straight away. Sorry, I just remembered that one, Karen. Sorry.
Yeah, that one's a good one. That's a really good one. That can also be a time saver or just another different way to work, I guess, right? Yeah, many ways to do things. Rolf has just a little question, a little bit off from what we're talking about today, but it is something new in version 7. So Rolf is asking if we can add comments to any elements, and we can, yes. And there's a note section down at the bottom. And there's also a note section for the skin itself. If you click into so you can add your own comments there, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would be doing my bit with the hand and showing, but of course you don't see me, so I won't be. I'll be wiggling my mouse instead. Here we go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Okie dokie. I think we've talked this one to death. So From
Yeah.
me, I'm done, and thank you all for joining us today. Karen, any last words?
Um, well, are the comments searchable? I don't think so, unless I'm told
Yes,
otherwise.
yes, apparently they are.
Oh, they are. They are. Okay. Okay.
They're
Yeah.
searchable.
There we go. Then they are. And then I think that's it. And yeah. Um,
Hang on, I'm gonna put myself on a wire here because
okay.
it's. Can you bomb out and speak to the team? Because I'm gonna say, how do we search for them? I can't remember.
I think also in regular
In
search.
find, in find. Do we? Ah, yes, because it's going to be tags and
It's down at
notes.
the bottom.
Notes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Yeah. I'm sure I saw this. I saw this last week when we did the debugging in the everywhere, and obviously today when we clicked on this, but it's notes. Yes, we can search in the notes.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
brand new. That's
That's it.
brand new. So we have
Yeah.
to get used to using it ourselves.
Yeah. Thanks very much for joining us today. And Karen, again, sorry. Any last notes? Anything you want to say? Like
No, just thank you. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
magic. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.